the 7th of June 2020, I hear you have not noticed that I belong to the elite, to the actually to the literary cycles to start with. So let's give it a try. I wrote it some time ago. I believe it was the end of the 2018, and it's the first one I wrote, the first one I had written since a funny construction. Well, grammar needs reviewing. Since I completed my studies in 2001, so this is after 17 years of a complete break from the study of literature and interpretation in the philological way. On Frosted Midnight, I think you can read the poem yourself. Let me guide you through the text. I have been reading Frosted Midnight by Samuel Taylor Coleridge with the intention of writing something about the poem, an essay to start with. I remember I wrote a short paper on it at the university, and now I cannot imagine what I was writing about. So perhaps my skills have fallen asleep due to the lack of practice. This is quite discouraging. Nonetheless, I have decided to give the poem a thought in the new phase of my life. They might wake up. We enter an intimate space. We enter it through the frost, performing its secret ministry, unhelped by any wind, which means we enter a religious universe, where frost is personified as a minister acting in secrecy. It is calm. No winds stir the scene. We can hear an owlet sounding loud, twice. We are immersed in nature, moving to the home space of a cottage, equally peaceful, marked with the innocence of the sleeping baby, safe in their cradle, his or her cradle. The home scene is filled with solitude. The other maids at rest, the baby belonging to a different personal space, being there at the speaker's side. The air of incomprehensibility is introduced by the qualification of the solitude as suitable for abstruser meanings, reinforced by the use of the comparative. Suddenly, the peaceful scenery is broken by the unexpected, by how the speaker relates to the calm. It is disturbing. It vexes meditation. The silentness is perceived as unnatural, strange and extreme. The word extreme implies a spectrum along which silence or silentness can unfold, which strikes as an extraordinary observation of what we normally perceive as a uniform quality. The speaker gives us anchor points for the surroundings: a sea, a hill, a wood, listed without any articles, and the general setting. the populous village and all the numberless goings-on of life, where life of the village is viewed as a whole, perhaps a compound, outside the speaker's world. The qualification of the village life goings-on as inaudible as dreams gives us a sense of their unreality. The scene is almost motionless, with the subdued energy of the element, fire, in the thin blue flame that lies and quivers not. The motion comes in the flutter of the film, the stranger, considered to be a sign of some absent friend arriving. And the very flutter, how delicate it must be, juxtaposed against the silent nature, appears to be viewed by the speaker as a manifestation of life, a possible companion. We may assume the idling spirit is that of the speaker, or the speaker as a representative of the human spirit, who creates an interaction between the flapping and freaking film, its ordinary and its extraordinary, by an act of interpretation, wherein the spirit seeks to hear itself or see its own reflection, depending on the personality or state, and by making it an object of one's thought, perhaps playful. As we have moved from the vaster space of nature into the cottage, so we are moving now from the vaster space of general reflection into the more focused space of personal experience. The moment which is followed by another movement, the movement which is followed by another movement, as we move from the original scene in the cottage to the recalled scenario at school, thus going back in time. So we move from the school time to the recollection of babyhood through the film. We are led to travel in space. If you are listening to me and your English is not too good, check what film means. It's not a movie. It's a little thing. As we are led to travel in space, mind and time. Unlike the populous village, with the numerous goings-on of life, the recalled space and the space recalled within the recalled space of the school is filled with specific references. The bars with the fluttering stranger at school bring back the memory of the birthplace, the old church tower with the bells, the non-silence, the stern preceptor's face, the book, the door, the references not impersonal, but endowed with the qualities born in personal experience, highly subjective. They become alive. We are admitted to a mind living in the world of its own, crossing the borders of the actual experience at hand in the particular space. Apart from the linear travel in time, the cyclical is signaled by the recollection of the summertime, which is easier to perceive once we reach the end of the poem. That mind, most believing, as we learn, is filled with an expectation of occurrences beyond the ordinary, the presageful. As the recollection reached babyhood, we move back to the cottage scenery with the address to the sleeping baby. In the address, we see the speaker once again in the cottage, by which I want to say that we have moved out from the recollection inside his mind, as he has done, and now are placed in his immediate surroundings, where he moves between his own universe and his own world in the cottage. The presence of the baby, enclosed in the cradle, becoming real as he breaks from his train of thoughts. The journey to the past creates a juxtaposition between the speaker's sense of imprisonment and his prediction of the child's freedom, resulting from their different backgrounds. Him having been brought up in the city, within cloisters and closed spaces, where he could find love only in the sky and stars, and the child in the countryside, where they can wander freely, like a breeze, immersed in the natural world, going back to the ancient times, the gentle and the wild, creating a universe of its own through the mutual reflection of all in all. Lakes, shores, and cracks image in their bulk lakes, shores, and cracks. And all will be lovable for the child, and the shapes and sounds will be comprehensible as the eternal language of God. The lovely shapes and sounds intelligible of that eternal language which thy God utters, who from eternity doth teach himself, who from eternity doth teach himself in all, and all things in himself. The source is eternity, the subject matter of study, God. It is not clear to me why the himself in all things in himself is spelled in the lower case. Unclear because it's about God. That disquieting die might suggest the real breaking point between the universe of the speaker and that of the child. Thus, his affinity with the film rather than with the sleeping baby. Still, the God is defined as great universal teacher, and his activity upon man is that of molding the spirit and giving, thus making them us. The poem is closed with a creation of temporal space, adorned with particular images representing seasons, in the cyclical time, in the prediction of the babe's life developing in the world of nature as constant sweetness, with the weather construction signaling the unconditional character of the relation. The silence that disquiets the speaker will not disquiet the child. The last line's frost is spelled in lowercase, and his performance acquires a transient quality of the icicles, as different from the permanent nature of the spiritual mode. Thank you for your attention. Agnieszka Beata Magdalena Roy.